Kyle here from allmediareviews.blogspot.com. All Media Reviews podcast number, I think it's 11 or 12. I can't remember. I think it might be 11. This is a second go at it because I was called by the missus and she anyway, and I was talking about the Masters. Of course, I'm not going to be able to watch the Masters right away, but the leaders haven't teed off, but hopefully I can catch it later. But the sentimental choice is for Ricky Fowler to finally win, and probably always will be because I just like the guy, and he's just consistently good, and he really should win a major. But Patrick Reed or Rory McIlroy, I kind of would lean toward Rory just because he's got the experience, but, you know, Patrick Reed beat him in the Ryder Cup a couple years ago in a match play. But hopefully I'll be able to watch most, if not at least the ending of how that ends up. And it could be someone else potentially, but it's the likelihood of it being pretty low. I mean, Spieth or Henrik Stenson, and there were a couple other guys that were on there off the top. John something, this guy from Spain, who I guess I was looking at the world rankings, and he's like 3rd or 4th in the world, even though I've never heard of him. His name is like John Hom or Fromm or something like that. Not a very Hispanic or Spain-sounding name, unlike, defending champion Sergio Garcia or, Jose Maria Olazabal or Seve Ballesteros. But anyway, we'll see what happens. I should do a longer podcast just about, about golf and about other sports topics. Golf being one of my favorites, at least for the majors. So, but we're on Masters Sunday, April 8th. I'm at my folks, just waiting for my clothes to finish drying. But the topics to focus on, I guess, in this podcast are, number one, Cloud Cult. So it's Cloud Cult, then the Family Crest, Better Call Saul, and then Kindo's new album and Ben Sinister's new album also, and some other stuff. But the gist of it, let's go topic by topic. Number one, Cloud Cult. I saw them in concert last night with the Minnesota Orchestra. Posted a review in the blog last night before I went to bed and everything. It was a great show. My seat was off to the side in one of the balconies, and I purchased the ticket last July. They sold out in 6 hours. They added a second show. Of course, I kind of succumbed to the pressure, like, thing's going to sell out quickly. If you want to go to Cloud Cult with Mr. Orchestra, you better buy a ticket now. And I didn't realize, even though I paid like $27 for my ticket, I didn't realize how far and, slightly obstructed. I couldn't see Scott May's painting and a couple of the orchestra musicians. But Mr. Orchestra was like, 40 or more musicians, I would guess. A lot of violins included. And the songs they did and they arranged worked to an extent. And they spent over a year preparing for this. I will say, I don't have the track list in front of me. I don't have internet access right now, so I can't. That's the top of my head. But Love You All was one of the highlights. That song came out really, really well, really wonderful. It was that much more melancholy and sad sounding. But I'm trying to think of some other specific examples of songs that really were enhanced greatly by the orchestra. I mean, No Hell, yeah, it's a great tune as it is. It was nice to hear. The closing piece on the actual main set with the orchestra, or was it the second to last closing piece? The closing piece from Light Chasers, There's So Much Energy in Us, was awesome. But again, that's another piece that is always a highlight anyway, but the orchestra enhanced it. They did do Running with the Wolves during the encore, but the orchestra didn't play with them during the encore, which kind of was a little bit disappointing for me. I still was greatly, happy to hear Running with the Wolves. And actually there, I can't remember when I saw them in 2012. 2012, they probably did it as well when I saw them at Orchestra Hall in downtown Minneapolis. But I guess the point I made also toward the end of my review was that with Symphonic Cloud Cult, with the arrangements, I tend to love when you have like a string section or anything else sort of echoing, reprising a melody or a main melodic counterpoint of the song. A song like Running with the Wolves, I think, would have been just gorgeous if they would have done that, and they did not. And actually, I don't think they did it. They didn't do it extensively, really, with a lot of the songs. It was really more of like a layering, harmony of sorts, I guess, and just amplifying some of the parts, like whatever it was, a dozen violins amplified Shannon and Fred's violin parts. So maybe that was the intention, and maybe it wouldn't have come out as well depending on the arrangement. These are world-renowned professional musicians in this orchestra based here in Minnesota, in the Twin Cities. But I'm a sucker for reprising a melody, whether it be a vocal melody, a guitar melody, whatever, in some other part later on. It could be on a different instrument, could be on just another vocal style, like a harmony or something like that. In this sense, you could have used some of the strings or maybe some of the horns even to sort of just echo some of the vocal melodies or some of the guitar melodies or whatever. The piano maybe even. But whatever. I still think it was a terrific show. They're doing another one tonight. I'm not going to that one. And they should try to release it as a live album if they can. Call it Symphonic Cloud Cult or whatever. I don't know if they will. Hopefully some videos will show up on YouTube or something, just because I think a lot of the fans that weren't able to attend these shows, and I know that there's a guy I met from Austin, Texas, and people came from around the country, even maybe outside of the U.S. for this show. But a lot of fans were not able to obviously hear this, so obviously if they could document it and release it in some fashion, they'd like to. And Cloud Cult's released a few live albums, not a ton, but more recently they've released some albums that I think it would be perfect, but we'll see. And one other point about the show is they had this thing there. It's like this exhibit, message to eternity kind of thing, and it was like a phone booth. And I guess somewhere in Japan they have it where you can call and speak to loved ones who had passed. Sort of like De los, Muertos, Day of the Dead in Mexico, or like the movie Coco, kind of the animated movie that won the Oscar, kind of showed and explored. The line was really long before the show, and I got there like a little under an hour before the show, and so I didn't bother waiting to see it. And then I did it afterwards, and I said a couple of words. I didn't think to talk to my passed away relatives. I should have, but I couldn't help but also be reminded a little bit of, which I was talking to a few people, telling them of Pain of Salvation's B and that messages to God thing. But the thing where you speak to God, whatever. I'm sure that Craig Minow and the members of Cloud Cult have never heard of Pain of Salvation or that specific album on B and that song, but that kind of reminded me of it to an extent, which is a common. I'm hearing Pain of Salvation and Cloud Cult. I'm finding all these connections between those two bands the last few years. So, but that, and then I also met this sociologist from Quinnipiac in Connecticut doing sort of like a sociology culture research of Cloud Cult fans, which I didn't fill out the survey because that was only before the show, but after the show I gave her my email, and she's gonna email me and some other people the survey, I guess. Just it's like how old you are, what you work, what you do for work, where you live. I think that's what it kind of is going to be about. But I talked to her for 10 or 15 minutes. I babbled on like I do in this podcast about my passion not only for Cloud Cult but for music, and say, well, I'd love to see this for all the 50 favorite bands I have, not just Cloud Cult, but it will be interesting to see the results, and it would be interesting to hear after she gets the results from this survey, it'd be here to have her speak with some of the members of Cloud Cult, Craig Minow especially, like an interview just discussing that, what their perception of what the fans' culture is, But, so moving on, there were some other things they had there, but just outside of the concert, but the obstructive view was probably the biggest downside, but didn't affect my ability to see the show overall. But and the Decemberists were here in town last night too, but their new album isn't really getting a great buzz about it, and I already bought the ticket for Cloud Cult back in July, so I wasn't going to go to see Decemberist. The concert jump would have been pretty hard anyway. It was probably at the same time. So moving on, I got in the background here the new Family Crest album, which came out on Friday, April 6th, called The War Act 1, and I knew this was going to be a good record just based on talking to the members about it, going all the way back to 2014 when I was praising Beneath the Brine so much, and like, well, the newer record's going to just blow Beneath the Brine completely out of the water or whatever. And having only heard it a few times, I can already say that I like it more than Beneath the Brine right now. I would be surprised if it doesn't hold up. And it's not just the fact it had the early singles I like. It Keeps Us Dancing, and what was it? The other one, Never Gonna Stop, and Take Night. There's only like maybe one kind of weak track, but like some of them, like the song like Rest, the second half is just surreal, and this is a complete album. I don't know, the concept I might get into. I'm gonna have the vinyl. I'll plan to show it on video, I think, and then maybe talk more about the album a little more. The Prelude to War EP was very good too. I suppose they weren't sure whether to release those songs with these songs, and this is not the first album. They got more music, I'm sure, because they've been writing for 4 years, and some of these songs I think go back before Beneath the Brine, and that's why it's this big concept, the war concept. So, but it's great to see the response. Most of the people have enjoyed this record. The lowest rating I saw was 3.5 stars, but a lot of people are saying it's better than Beneath the Brine. So the opening for the Deer Hunter and the Deer Hunter fan base, and hopefully the progressive rock fans, a lot of them will have a chance to hear it. And we'll see. I mean, I thought, well, this could be album of the year. It's that good. And I mean, the track list, again, I'm still kind of getting to know these tracks by name. Besides the singles, the song Rest, Daggers, Waiting Still, Like a Light, The Years, The Rocks, Resting on Your Back, the last track. It's so lush, the string parts, the arrangements, the sort of dynamics. Liam's kind of vocals, I think, are even better at points. He accentuates very well. And it's very uplifting, very inspirational, this album seems to be. So, we'll see. I mean, there's a lot of other stuff coming out. A lot of the good stuff that's already come out. And I'm not ready just to say, well, this is definitively better than every record I've heard this year. But we're getting close to halfway. When I do my mid-season list in a little less than a month, probably early May, late April, early May. This might be number one. I mean, I guess by default I would put number one, but there's other stuff coming soon, and there's the stuff that's come out I still enjoy, between like Orphanland and Typhoon's album, and a few others I'm just spacing on at the moment right now. But yeah, that's a podcast for another time that will be coming soon. And the War Act 1, I really, really do hope that more people hear it. I hope 5 years from now we're talking about the way I still look back and revere like Pepe Deluxe's album, Queen of the Waves. So, and it's I hope it's a breakthrough even more in a sense for the Family Crest, where they're just, instead of them opening, bands are going to want to open for them. I'm not sure who, maybe Umi or someone like that. But like a national touring act, I don't know who. It would be someone that literally put out a debut album in the last year or two. That band from England, maybe, which I'm blanking on, that kind of blues rock band. So, all right, that's topic number 2. Topic number 3, Better Call Saul. I was going to do a separate podcast and/or video about Better Call Saul, season 3. The long story as short as possible with why I finally got to see Better Call Saul season 3 now in the last couple weeks and not last year is because I was trying to save money, obviously, and I cut my cable to the very bare minimum, which didn't include AMC. Because the first 2 seasons of Better Call Saul and then Breaking Bad, I had AMC, and I would watch episodes. I had a tradition of watching them every morning when I came home, when I got up before I went to work. And I was going between my girlfriend at the time's place and the apartment I had at the time that I left last June. So I saved money. I didn't watch it, and I had Netflix thanks to a friend, but I didn't. It didn't show up on there. So, and actually, I ran into a copy of the season 3 DVD about 2 or 3 weeks ago at Half Price Books and thought about buying it. And it was on. They had their sale, but I was like, well, if it's going to come to Netflix, I may as well watch it. So finally, I watched the first episode back in. It was about a year ago in April when they put it up. They put it up to stream for free on AMC's website, but then the other 9 episodes I didn't. So getting into the actual season, and I'm trying to take in the official Insider podcast with Vince Gilligan and Peter Gould, the creators, and usually have an actor and the editor, Kelly, whatever her name is, and some of the other people. I've listened to maybe 3 or 4 of them, but I think the season 3 in some ways was the best season they've had so far. In that we finally kind of got some transitions about, okay, he's with Kim, he's not dealing with HN, him and his brother sort of, the shit hit the bleeping fan with his brother, the whole, trial they went to between the two of them and what happened at the end of season 2 with the tape. If you haven't watched it, his brother kind of got him to confess after this whole thing when Kim left HHM and the law firm and stuff. So, but and then of course he ends up having to not practice law for a year, and I mean, trying to summarize the whole season is not easy in just a few minutes. The Mike character continues to be probably my favorite character to watch, even though he's a secondary plot. It's sort of setting the stage for the present of Breaking Bad. I wasn't following the exact years they were at, but Kim ended up writing a check to Howard, and it was March 4th or something, 2003. So this is literally 5 years before Breaking Bad. And the characters were introduced to people like Nacho and Kim and Howard and Chuck, especially. Those are probably the biggest ones. Well, and of course, Hector Salamanca. Obviously, things are drastically different for these characters from 2003 at that period into the very beginning of Breaking Bad, which is 2008 up to 2009. That's the questions I'm having. I'm hoping they explore that, and to see post Breaking Bad Saul when I forget the character's name, when he's at the Cinnabon in Nebraska or whatever. But the end of this season, since it's a spoiler alert, Chuck house burns down. He's getting better from all the electromagnetic radiation, issues, which is kind of being revealed as more of a psychosomatic mental health issue. But we see his place. I mean, he just kept on kicking that lantern, which they should have had it just happen in 1 or 2 times. It felt like it took forever for the lantern to fall down, and then the house burns up. And I read online, spoiler alert, that he's not going to be back for, he's dead. His character dies. So my guess is when they do bring season 4, they're going to deal with the aftermath. I'm guessing that Jimmy is going to have to deal with the aftermath of Chuck's death. But I'm still hoping that Michael McKean will make appearances in flashbacks, because it would be sad to not have him still involved in the show, even though his character Chuck is one of the most hated characters in not just Better Call Saul, but all of television at this point. But putting that aside, we know after this 2003, Chuck isn't around, knowing that. But what happens to these other characters? What happens to Nacho? That whole thing, is Nacho responsible for what happens to Hector Salamanca? The whole thing with the drugs and switching it, and how does he end up not being able to talk and being in the wheelchair, having to hit the buttons and stuff? Of course, Gus too. We know where Gus ends up, but how does he become that way? How does Gus change in some ways? Figure out how to run the whole crystal meth business with the Pollos Hermanos or whatever, and then the laundry building, warehouse, whatever it is, factory, whatever the heck that is, where he uses as a cover for the cooking of the crystal meth. And then, of course, Kim, what happens to her? I'm really hoping they don't kill her off. I'm hoping that at the Breaking Bad period time, she's off somewhere else, or she's just not dealing with Jimmy's professional life, or as Saul Goodman, but they're not at odds. But I have kind of a bad feeling they're not gonna. While they're together a lot, they're not gonna. It's not gonna be smooth sailing because he transitioned into this sort of darker business. Part of her is just not gonna be able to accept it, but I don't know. And then I don't know what happens to the Howard character. If they killed him off, I would have no problem with that, of course. It would be interesting somehow if Saul Goodman ends up screwing him over, or the whole firm over at some point, as Saul Goodman. And they said they might actually do some episodes that are in the present. One thing that I read when they talked about Chuck's death is that they're going to also try to do more. The 2003 period, the work they've done with that is going to be limited, if not almost done. So, and they may do some Breaking Bad present episodes, which I'm wondering, as fan servicey as it is, they can bring on some of the characters. They can bring on, maybe he crosses paths, not with Walter, but with Hank. Hank is the obvious one. They got to get, I forget the actor's name again now, Dean Norris, who's a Kevin Gilbert fan. Get him to come make an appearance back, because he's working for the DEA and everything, and I think there's a chance the thing is, when Jesse and Walter meet Saul, they didn't really know him, but I'm thinking either one of the, besides Mike, one of the other connected people in there might have a chance to have crossed paths with him. Besides Tuco, of course, he's already met Tuco. Maybe we'll get more of Tuco around the Breaking Bad period. I just hope they don't screw up the continuity. So, but the thing about Better Call Saul, speaking about season 4, what I read is it's been delayed for various reasons. They're trying to perfect it and stuff. And the first two seasons, or the first season was in February to April. The second season was April to June. Or the first two seasons I think was February to April. The third season was April to June. But this one's supposed to come in the end of September. So the question is, will I have cable at that point? I don't know. I may have to try to use my friend's account or something. But I really would not want to have to wait till September of 2019 to be able to see season 4. So, that's basically the gist of my Better Call Saul season 3 review. There's probably some things I'm forgetting, but so be it. Maybe I'll eventually do a follow up, or when we're talking about when the season 4 starts, maybe I'll just kind of revisit it a little bit, or what I'm looking forward to more in season 4. So, do I like it as much as Breaking Bad? No, I think most people, but I think it's a close second. It's become a very addictive, very character-driven, very compelling show. And although I wouldn't mind them doing some very almost pure comedy work on it, because that's what I was originally thinking. A lot of people thought it was going to be like a half-hour sitcom. Maybe when he becomes Saul Goodman, the sarcasm gets lifted up and a couple notches and stuff. So, and we need Yule more. We'll see if he starts using him. He made the appearance in the one episode in the courtroom, which I haven't listened to the podcast about that, but I'm sure they talk about him in that. So now moving on to the last topic, or two topics. The Kindo album, Happy Hour, comes out next Friday. Pre-ordered it. I put it on link on the blog. Looking forward to that. Will that compete with the Family Crest? Probably. I did write about how I'm a little down the fact they didn't include some of the more recent songs they included. They've given on the Patreon. That song "Poor and Hungry Kings" especially, because it's just so funky and catchy. But maybe it's for the next album. And maybe the next Kindo album could come out a year from now or even less. But as far I'm still looking forward to it. The songs, what the differences might be on, and this is the track order from the Patreon versions of a lot of these songs. Because every song I think was a Patreon song. So, and don't be surprised if when I do the mid-season list in a few weeks, the Kindo. The question is, which album is better, Family Crest or Kindo? I guess I would lean toward Family Crest, having known all those Kindo songs, but this is what I've always wanted. I like having the competing albums for my taste. So. Happy Hour Ever After, and the War Act 1, but and whatever else. I have to just kind of revisit some of the records from the last few months, going back to November. So So, the last point of the podcast is also Ben Sinister's album, Foolish Games, has been announced. It's coming out May 25th. So, excited for that, of course. And, that won't be included in the mid-season list, though, likely. But, and there's a lot of stuff also in the works. East of the Wall posted an update recently that they've finished. Soundscape album, I'm really thinking they're going to announce very soon what's happening with it, because they've finished the vocals, I think. There's a bunch of others. I mean, there's stuff that keeps on getting updated every week or two. There's a picture of Jimmy Necco posted on his Instagram, which I need to sign up for Instagram because everyone's on Instagram at some point. With a bunch of CDs, and he says, kind of the comment was like, pretty looking for or figuring out the track order or something like that. So the fact that the guy they were going to have mix it passed away last year, obviously they've had someone else mix it, or they're going to have someone else mix it. So I would think at least by the end of 2018 we'll have Spectacular Sight get released. In my season, it might not be coming, but that would be cool though if it ended up being in the next season and the new Dredge album came out the same period of time. We'd have Hours and Dredge, just like Family Crest and Kindo or whatever. So Dirt Poor Robins, I don't know what the story is with the track per month thing that's starting this month, but I go to their Facebook every couple days. Hopefully we'll get an announcement soon. I mean, there's some others, obviously, that I'll maybe on the second part, the last part of babbling on in the mid-season list. Looking forward to the rest of the season. I'll try to post an update if I don't do it before then about or mention updates on from the likes of Fiacra and Pepe Deluxe, of course, and the Sculptured record, Liminal Phase, and there's a lot, but I'm thinking a lot of this stuff is going to come out by the end of October, hopefully, and we'll get more news about it in the next few months. So, but that's enough for now. Thank you for listening, and I'm curious if you've heard the Family Crest album, the War Act one. What's your thoughts about Better Call Saul? Are you a fan? Did you just don't like it as much as Breaking Bad? What did you think of season 3? Even though for a lot of people it was probably a year ago they were watching it. And as far as Cloud Cult goes, I've done videos about Cloud Cult. What's your take on symphonic versions of bands' music? There's a lot of bands I would love to hear done with an orchestra, music played live with an orchestra, like the Deer Hunter, of course, have done. But you name it, from Dredge to Marillion to Fate's Warning, even would be interesting to hear with an orchestra. To Anathema. I think they actually have Anathema, but like Porcupine Tree or like a Genesis orchestra with a concert with a Genesis orchestra, especially the Peter Gabriel stuff, would be fantastic. I mean, Yes has done it, but I don't know if Genesis has ever done it. For that matter, Rush. There's the whole strings version, but I want an actual full-on orchestra, and having it live would be more interesting than some studio arrangement, actually. So, but thank you for listening. Please comment if you have any comments about this. I'd appreciate that. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. And one other last note. There's a Kevin Gilbert video that I made a couple years ago about if he was alive, sort of the Cover Kill Nations kind of hypothetical fantasy type video topics. It made me think I want to do the whole video or just maybe podcast about every Kevin Gilbert record. In order to do that, though, I need to have them in front of me and just kind of jog my memory. And I'd like to do that for Marillion as well, of course, but Marillion would take more time. But Kevin doesn't have that many releases. It wouldn't take that much work to do. So, but it's interesting how that video is getting a lot of attention from me. I'm getting comments or likes on it probably almost every week. I had a few this past weekend, so appreciate that for anyone who finds us. I mean, Kevin Gilbert fans are out there. He's obscure, just like so many others I talk about. I have no idea, if like Grimace, Grimace fans would ever find my videos, or Small League Sink Ships, Kevin is not maybe quite as obscure as those two artists, but he's still obscure enough. But it makes me kind of wonder if I need to do more content on him. I mean, he is my favorite musician anyway, but that video specifically has found it's found some recent attention that I didn't really anticipate, but I totally appreciate. So thank you for those, and we'll see you next time.